I'm going to make a start. Thank you to parents and carers for joining this evening. I know there was an issue with the link being sent out, so hopefully parents have been able to get it or retrieve it in time. I'm not sure what the issue was with that, but I'll have a look into it. But at least we managed to get there in the end. So today's forum is going to be quite a short one, to be honest. There's not much in the way of communication from a year nine point of view, but just going to bring you to speed with a few things that will be happening before we break up for term. So I'm going to go and give a general overview of progress and behavior to begin with. Then just going to be discussing the upcoming mock examinations after half term. A brief conversation about cover lessons and some of the things that we are trying to implement to improve cover lessons and key dates for your diary. Okay, if you have any questions that you would like as I'm discussing, could you please put them in the chat? Miss O'Malley will try to answer them in the chat, and if we miss or don't answer everything, we can kind of cover them at the end. So please just put any questions that you have in the chat, and hopefully Miss O'Malley will be able to answer them for you. Okay, so this is just a general overview of progress and behavior this half term. If you can see, we've got 2,263 achievement points, which is always good to see. But unfortunately, a big concern and a big issue from a behavior point of view is this figure down here that is 729 behavior incidents, which is significantly higher for the period of time that we have run the report. So we've identified quite a few things that have been an issue for these higher behavior incidents, and some of them come down to poor behavior in cover lessons. We've had a significantly high increase in truancies from lessons, which we have been addressing this half term, and I'll go into a bit more detail about that shortly, and general disruptive behavior in and around the school building. So I would say from a year nine point of view, this is too high, and we're trying to reduce that number significantly just so we can reduce the disruption to lessons and just general poor behavior in and around the school from a small percentage of year nine students. So if you can see, sorry, didn't. So having looked at this chart, if you can see the ratio is 76%. In that space of time from since the start of this half term, it's quite a significantly high number, probably the highest in the school at this point. And there have been several things that we've been trying to do to address this behavior. So we have senior members of staff popping into some lessons or significant parts of the school that we found have got tricky behavior. Some of it is in between corridors and lesson changeover, and the behavior in cover lessons isn't to the standard that we would like. So we're kind of asking parents and carers to have these discussions with their children about just their general behavior in cover lessons and in and around the school. We feel like the behavior has kind of slightly dipped this half term, and we're not sure why. But we want the expectations to still be risen, and we want our students to be learning and doing the right thing. So this has been addressed in different forms, and I will go into that in a bit more detail towards the end, but just something to make you aware of, and for you to have these conversations with your children about how they think their lessons are going and just some of the behavior around the school. I just thought I'd put a bit of a attendance reminder for some of our parents. We have a school target of 96%. Again, I have noticed that the percentage of students who are absent from school has slightly increased. If you can see, the school target is 96%, and the year nines are currently at 92%. So what we really need is students to be coming into school as often as they can. If they're absolutely unable to attend for sickness, then of course they can't attend and they need to stay at home to get better. But unfortunately, we're seeing that there's sometimes a bit of a pattern with students staying off school. So if there's a particular subject or a particular day where they're not coming in, we're asking form tutors to call in and have conversations with you guys about what the issue is. Because we've seen that the attendance has slightly dipped for the year nines this year, and we would really want it to get up to 96%. And to avoid you having phone calls or any reminders from the attendance team, just to keep us informed about, if a student needs to go to the doctor or GP for persistent sickness, then keeping us informed. It will save you getting the constant reminders, but also it's an opportunity for us to know what's going on, and to see if there's anything that we can do to support school or to support you getting the students back into school. So we want to get this target for the last half term before we break up for the year back up to roughly around the 96%, and just keep students in school as much as we can, because we know that missed learning can have a massive effect on their progress. Just bear with me for 1 second. Okay, so the mock examinations will be happening after the half-term break. It is the first opportunity for the Year 9s to experience an examination in the sports hall, which can be a bit nervy for some of our young people, but also it's a good opportunity to get some experience this side of this year in Year 9 before they go into Year 10. So the first mock examination that you're probably aware of is Monday the 2nd of June, which is a science mock, which will be in the sports hall, and we'll be following through the exact same procedure that they would do when they take their exams in Year 11. It's a morning exam, which will be for periods 1 and 2, in beginning at period 1 and into period 2, and we will be doing the exact same procedure with the Year 9s as we would do for the other students who are currently taking their exams in Year 11 now. So what we do is they get registered as normal. We meet up in the Bluebird Cafe in form groups. We give them a bit of a pep talk, remind them of the expectations, ensure that they have got their equipment and are ready for the exam. And most importantly, they enter the hall under strict examination rules. So we ask that students are lined up silently and taken into the hall, where they will put their bags at the back and then go straight to their seat. This has all been explained in detail to the Year 9s, and it's a good opportunity for them to just get a bit of a feel for what the exam process is like, and also to just keep reminding them about, trying their best, not to make them too worried about the exams, but just give them a feel for it. The second mock will be on Wednesday, the 4th of June, which is an afternoon exam. So again, it's slightly different. And what we usually do in the afternoon exams is that we will line up our students at the end of lunch, ensure that they're nice and quiet and ready to enter the hall in silence. But it's slightly different to a morning exam because they have their break and then they have to come and line up. But again, it's good experience for them to experience this, because when they do their GCSEs in Year 11, there'll be morning and afternoon exams. So just good to give them a bit of a taste. The exam procedure and expectations have been clearly explained to the Year 9s, and we will be quite strict and treat it like any other exam. And the reason for this is we want them to be absolutely ready and know the procedure when it comes in to them doing exams in Year 10 and 11. So we will be quite strict with disqualifications, not allowing students to do their exam if they're in incorrect uniform. They need to have full equipment, and they just need to follow the procedure as they would if they were taking their exams right now in Year 11. And we would ask that parents and carers communicate this with them as well, to ensure that there are no issues with any behavior or just the expectations of going into an exam. We don't want students to feel stressed out, but again, we just want them to have a bit of an experience with taking it. And we feel that it's a good opportunity for them to get a feel before they go into Year 10, where the exams in the hall will slightly increase and they will be expected to do it a bit more often. So just bear with me for 1 minute. Right, I've had quite a few emails regarding access arrangements, so just going to go through it, and then if you have any questions, please put them into the chat. So access arrangement testing has been carried out this week and will be finalized by the end of the week. We have the inclusion department who have been testing some of our young people to see if they're eligible for access arrangements. If this is the case, and they are, then students who are eligible will be informed by the inclusion department. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will contact parents and carers just yet. When we start into Year 10, then at that point, the list will kind of be finalized a bit more, and you may be contacted by the inclusion department. But don't stress if you have not been contacted. I would say just double check with your child if you know they have been tested, and they will be able to confirm whether they are eligible or not. This will be different in Year 10, but just for this side and for for the process of their mocks exams now, you will not be necessarily notified. So just keep that in mind. All students who have an educational healthcare plan are automatically granted their access arrangements. And again, this may be communicated with you at this side of the year, but if not, you just need to double check with your child. Some students like to be do their exams in a smaller room, and some students prefer to just do it in the main hall. So this is a bit of a learning process for us and an opportunity to see what works best for the students. It isn't finalized, and it doesn't mean that things won't change in year 10. It's just, circumstances change, and sometimes students prefer different things. So if you are unsure, or if your child is unsure, again, we will kind of finalize it when we come back in year 10 and look into a bit more detail, but do not stress too much now. If a student has been granted the access arrangements, then it will be put in place for this exam as well coming up. If a student has a particular diagnosis or a particular need, it does not mean that they automatically qualify for access arrangements. Again, they will be tested by the inclusion team, and it would be confirmed as soon as they've been tested. All access arrangements are governed by the Joint Council for Qualification, so the school are directed by their specific guidelines. I've included the link on the slide, so when it's sent to parents, you can have a little read through and see what the guidance and guideline is for that. Throughout year 10 and for the rest of this academic year, evidence and suggestions will be collected from their teachers, okay? So again, it might not be that they've got access arrangements at this point or they've been tested, but if a teacher strongly feels that this, is wrong or incorrect, we do revisit it again in year 10. And it isn't something that's completely set in stone. They'll be tested throughout and changes can happen. So just to make you aware of that. And finally, I've included the access arrangements policy within this slide. So if you want to have a little read through and just have a look at the guidance and guidelines that have been set by the head teacher and inclusion department, you're happy to do so. We've also included an email for the access arrangement teams, which is within that policy. Again, if you have any concerns or issues, you can directly email that link from that email address, and someone from the team will get back to you shortly. Okay, so I've briefly touched on some of the issues that we have had surrounding cover lessons. I know this has been an ongoing concern in pretty much every forum that we've had. What I would like to say is that currently the year 9 cover lessons are checked by the senior leadership team and by myself when I'm not teaching, just because we know the standard of learning and behavior isn't where we'd like it to be. So this is something that is frequently happening at the minute and will do to the end of the year. We now have poor behavior being followed up by not just the cover team, but also departments. So if the cover has been, particularly bad in an English lesson, for example, the head of English is following up with his team and with me to make sure that we address the behavior and ensure that students are reminded of the expectations and also issued with a suitable sanction if that is the case. Cover work guidelines have changed slightly to improve that all students have appropriate work. I know through having conversations with parents and having received a lot of emails about the standard of work. So again, this is something that has been addressed within departments to ensure that a good standard of cover work is at least being set, so students can have a bit of learning that is meaningful rather than just cover work that can be finished in 15, 20 minutes, which then results in students not being able to behave and not behaving appropriately. So the cover work guidelines have changed for departments, and again, this is something that head of departments are reviewing quite carefully. Departments will try to arrange cover when their teams are off or any long-term absence. So if, for example, there is a teaching staff who has not got as high allocated hours, they will try to cover that lesson just so it is a member of staff that the students are familiar with, and we can keep the cover within the team. Again, this is something that has been reviewed recently, and I know there have been some long-term absences in some subjects. So we're trying to ensure that at least it's not a cover teacher coming in externally, and we have a member of staff who is within the departments to cover the lessons. Okay, so just some key dates for your diary. We have Thursday, the 22nd of May, which is a community evening, 5 till 7 p.m. Again, reminders will be sent out. It's a really good event, and we expect all students and parents and carers to come along and do something that's quite nice outside of the normal learning environment. On Friday, the 20th of June, is a Windrush celebration, which begins at 3:10 onwards, and that will be in the Fives Courts. Friday, the 4th of July, is a summer showcase. We've got lots of year nines who are involved in that. So again, please do come along and celebrate. Hopefully we'll have good weather, which will make it a bit more enjoyable. And Wednesday, the 16th of July, is a sports day. We're expecting all students to attend on the sports day. I've had quite a few emails asking if their child can be exempt from the sports day because they don't like PE or doing sports. It's a day that everyone is expected to come in school. It's quite a supportive day, and even if you do not enjoy sports, you do not like PE, you can still come along and support your form group. Thursday, the 17th of July, is the end of year trip, and I will go into a bit more details about that in the next slide. And then finally, Friday, the 18th of July, is the last day of term, which will usually be a half day and a non-uniform day. But again, that will be confirmed in the coming weeks before we break up. Okay, so end of year trip is ice skating at Alexandra Palace. This will be the first year that the year nines will not be split up into two, A side and B side of the trip. So it'll be quite nice for them to experience the end of year trip, not just within their forms, but as a whole year group together, which is quite nice. It's on the Thursday, the 17th of July, and the cost will be £9, which will cover entry and transport. Okay. Payment can only be made on parent pay. Now, this is quite important. As usual, we need the parent pay confirmation, so it will allow you to give permission for your child to attend. But if for any reason there's any kind of financial difficulty, please just let me know and I'll sort something out. If any parents and carers are able to pay for any extra spaces that will pay for our disadvantaged students, that would be great. But again, that is at your own will. But we'd appreciate if you could. No mobile phones are allowed, as always. It's the same since year 7 and 8. We will allow mobile phones probably in the final year because I've had a few emails about this, but I prefer if no mobile phones are brought, just because it means that they can socialize and enjoy the day together rather than being stuck on their phones. And yeah, finally, students do not need to wear uniform this year, but they do need to have appropriate clothing for ice skating. So this will be the first year that they do not have or do not need to wear their uniform or a PE kit, but they do need to have appropriate clothing for ice skating. And then Thursday, the 10th of July, is the deadline for payment. And if you have any issues with payment, like I said, just send me an email and I will sort something out. If we do not get a confirmation on parent pay, unfortunately, they will not be allowed to attend the trip. And then finally, so just to touch base with some of the concerns that we have in year 9 at the minute. So based on the behavior data that I showed you before, this half term we've had 179 truancy on calls, which is a significantly high number. And we are trying to address it in various forms. So students who are persistently truant in their lesson are currently being monitored by senior management through the way of reports and having meetings with parents and carers. But also there is quite a significant rise in students who would not necessarily have truanted their lesson before, but are now trying their luck. Now, the questions I would like to ask is, what is the reason for this? We know it does happen in cover lessons because students have got the opportunity to not necessarily go undetected, but to try it until, it is followed up. But we still think that 179 is too high. So again, if your child has been issued with a behavior point for truancy, we really encourage you to have these conversations with them about the expectations and why they are not attending the lessons. Punctuality to school, again, significantly higher this year against other years, and last term. Students are not arriving to school on time, which means they're issued with detentions at lunchtime, and that often means that if they do miss that detention at lunch, it gets escalated to a head of year detention. So we're just encouraging parents and carers to have these conversations with their children about coming into school on time, just so it minimizes the detentions, but also missed learning or missed schedule at tutor time. Okay, because quite a lot of students are missing tutor time and or coming to school late, which has an impact on their progress. Punctuality to lessons, again, unfortunately, this has been a bit of a concern, and a significant high number of students are just not arriving to their lessons on time. It could be 5 or 10 minutes late, but it disrupts the learning, and it often means that they miss the starter activity from their teacher. And when we add up all the minutes of missed learning, it is quite high. So we just asking for parents and carers to please have conversations with your children about how important it is to attend the lesson on time and to minimize any disruption to the learning and to ensure that they are there for the starter activities. Where am I? Poor behavior and standard of work in cover lessons. I've kind of addressed that before. And this is something that we're monitoring closely from now until the end of year 9. We're hoping that the standard of work for setting cover lessons will be improved, and that will help with improving the behavior as well. And yeah, so just finally, for uniform, unfortunately, this half term I've had to send quite a few students home for coming into school with incorrect uniform, whether it's black trainers or not the correct trousers or not the correct jumper. But again, it's significantly increased, and what I want is parents and carers to please just ensure that their children are coming in with uniform. I don't want to send anyone back home, but if we allow students to come in, it sets a wrong message for everyone else, and then it just means that students try their luck and start coming into school with the incorrect uniform. So please do check, if you can, every day that your child is coming in the correct uniform, because anyone who persistently does not come in with the uniform will be sent back home to change. And then finally, a big concern this half term is the use of mobile phones in school. Quite a few students are getting their phones out at the end of the day when they're not allowed, and it is causing quite a few issues around, well, for me, following up with behavior incidents and inappropriate use of the phone. Phones are still not allowed in school and should not be used at school at any point. If they are found, they do get confiscated and put into the school safe until Friday. So please support the school by reinforcing this message that they are not allowed their phones in the school building at all, and they should not be used in school even at the end of the day. And I think that is the final slide. Could we add any questions that we may have into the chat, and then we can answer them now? Miss O'Malley, have you missed any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Hi. I've pretty much managed to answer them all. I was just about to write about computer science. So a couple of people have raised a concern about computer science that has been brought to our attention as well. So I don't have a concrete answer for you right now, but I will follow up with the line manager of that department to find out what's happening there. And then we can try and get a message out to parents and carers of students that do computer science. Everything else I think I've managed to address. So if anyone wants to put their hand up for anything they'd like to ask verbally, then please do so. I can do the same for religious studies.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an answer. So currently we do have a religious studies teacher that will be covering the class from now until the end of year 9. We know that the behavior and learning has not been where we'd like it to be in that class. So on the first week back, I'll be going into that class just to reset the expectations and make the students aware that they have got a teacher that'll be covering that lesson from now until the end of the year. So hopefully the last 7 weeks or so, lessons will be improved and they'll actually be getting some good learning. I think that's been a particularly challenging class because the cover has been quite persistent. So hopefully knowing now that they've got a teacher from now to the end of term will kind of reset things and show some improvement.
Just to add, so in the chat, I've seen a few people just agreeing to that. So yeah, I'll try and get an update on those individual teachers. I don't line manage the department, so I don't have the full details, but I'll speak with the leadership team that do, and then we can send a message out to kind of give you an update of if they're expected back or if the cover is expected to stay the same or whatever else. So we'll do that. I'll follow that up today.
Let me see. My son ended up in all detention for the first time. No, what should usually happen is that the member of staff that is in the on-call room should email teachers to send work down. So I'll have to look into that. But I think I know what that situation is about. So if I could give you a call and explain that to you myself directly, then I'll do that shortly. But I think I'm aware of that issue. Any other questions or queries? No. Okay, so thank you for joining the forum. Like I said, as always, if you have any, big concerns or issues, just let me know or the relevant department lead. I think for after half term, it's just about getting students prepared and ready for year 10 and ensuring that they finish the year on a bit of a high, and yeah, resetting things a little bit. If you could just please speak to your children about everything that I've raised today, that would be great. And as always, if you need anything, just let me know. Can they switch GCSE subject if no substitute teacher can be found? I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you mean can they change their subject? We can't really change any students at this point in the year if a teacher's not. I think it's down to the department to try and ensure that they can get a permanent member of staff rather than a student moving out of the subject. Partly because the year group is full, so it's not always easy to change into a different subject because the majority of classes are at capacity already. If that answers your question. Hi, yeah, I can ask for core subjects to send a bit of a reminder for what revision books are expected, but they are all listed on Parent Pay. So if you're unsure, just let me know and I can signpost you in the right direction or send you the correct link. I think the best bet is to just ask the teacher directly. Yeah, I'll raise about the catch-up questions, about the catch-up lessons, but I don't think that's likely to happen this side of the year, to be honest. But again, it will be prioritized for the remainder of next half term. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for joining. Have a lovely evening. Take care. Bye bye.